Imagine a world carved from stone and painted by the sky. This is the American Southwest, a land of breathtaking scale and profound silence. Picture this: sandstone cliffs, colossal and ancient, catching the last fiery kiss of the setting sun. They glow in shades of orange, red, and deep purple, a spectacle that has unfolded every evening for millennia. As daylight fades, a cool wind begins to stir, whispering through the labyrinth of canyons. It's a sound that feels older than time itself, a secret language shared between rock and air. This wind has seen civilizations rise and fall. It has polished the surfaces of these great stone walls and carried the scent of sagebrush and distant rain across vast, empty landscapes. For centuries, this has been a place of solitude and raw, untamed beauty. The sky here is an immense dome of the deepest blue, and at night, it transforms into a velvet canvas scattered with more stars than you could ever imagine. It's a place that makes you feel small, yet connected to something eternal. But this silent world holds a deep and captivating mystery. Look closer. High up on those sheer cliff faces, tucked into impossibly high alcoves, are the ghosts of ancient homes. Stone structures, multi-story dwellings, built with remarkable skill and precision, clinging to the rock like a swallow's nest. Who are the people who called these perilous heights home? They are known to us as the Ancestral Puebloans, a name that hints at their deep connection to this land. But the name itself doesn't answer the most pressing questions. Why did they choose to build their communities in such remote and inaccessible locations? What drove them to scale these vertical walls, hauling stone, mortars, and timber hundreds of feet above the canyon floor? It was an incredible feat of engineering and sheer human will. Living here would have been a daily challenge, a life lived on the edge, in every sense of the word. Imagine waking up each morning to a sheer drop just outside your door, the entire world spread out beneath you like a map. These weren't just simple shelters. They were complex, thriving communities. Some, like the famous Cliff Palace in Mesa Verde, contained over 150 rooms and dozens of the circular ceremonial chambers that were the heart of their spiritual life. Here, families lived, children played, and artisans crafted beautiful pottery and intricate textiles. They were skilled farmers, cultivating corn, beans, and squashing the mesa tops above or the canyon floors below, a testament to their ingenuity and deep understanding of this harsh environment. They created a vibrant society, rich in culture and tradition, all within the protective embrace of these stone walls. For over 700 years, from around 600 to 1300 AD, their civilization flourished in this silent world of stone and sky. They built, they farmed, they prayed, and they left behind a legacy etched into the very rock of the Southwest. Their pottery, decorated with intricate geometric designs, tells stories without words. The petroglyphs and pictographs they carved and painted onto the canyon walls are a cryptic journal of their beliefs, their hunts, and their relationship with the cosmos. These cliff dwellings are more than just ruins. They are silent monuments to a resilient and resourceful people. They are a puzzle, waiting to be understood. But then, something happened. Around the end of the 13th century, after generations of living in these spectacular cliffside cities, the Ancestral Puebloans began to leave, not just from one or two locations, but from across the entire Four Corners region. They packed up what they could carry and walked away from the homes their ancestors had built with such care and effort. They abandoned their granaries, their kivas, and the familiar pathways they had trodden for centuries. The plazas fell silent, the hearths grew cold, and the whispers of the wind were once again the only voices in the canyons. The question of why they left is one of the greatest archaeological mysteries in North America. There was no single, obvious catastrophe. Instead, scholars point to a combination of factors, a perfect storm of challenges that may have made life in the cliffs unsustainable. One of the leading theories points to a prolonged and severe drought that gripped the region in the late 1200s. Treading data shows that this period, known as the Great Drought, was one of the driest in centuries. Without reliable rainfall, crops would have failed, springs would have dried up, and a society built on agriculture would have faced starvation. But environmental challenges may have been only part of the story. Some researchers suggest that social and political factors played a crucial role. As resources became scarcer, conflict between neighboring communities may have intensified. There's archaeological evidence of defensive structures and even violent events at some sites, hinting at a period of unrest and instability. Perhaps the social fabric that had held their communities together for so long began to unravel under the immense pressure. Others proposed that a new religious ideology or a charismatic leader may have emerged, calling the people to migrate to new lands, promising a better future elsewhere. It's likely a combination of all these things: environmental hardship, social strife, and perhaps a spiritual calling. The departure wasn't a sudden exodus, but a gradual migration over several decades. They moved south and east towards the Rio Grande Valley in New Mexico and the mesas of Arizona, where their descendants, the modern Pueblo peoples, live today. The stories passed down through generations of Pueblo people speak of this migration not as an end, but as a journey, a fulfillment of a prophecy, a search for the center place. For them, their ancestors never truly vanished. They simply completed a chapter in their people's long history and began a new one. So today, when you stand at the base of these cliffs and gaze up at the empty windows of these ancient homes, you're looking at a profound moment in human history, frozen in time. You can almost feel the presence of those who lived here, their spirits lingering in the silent stone. These dwellings are a powerful reminder of our connection to the past and the enduring resilience of the human spirit in the face of incredible challenges. They teach us about adaptation, community, and the deep mysteries that still lie hidden in the silent landscapes of our world. Join us as we continue to explore these mysteries, to listen to the whispers of the past, and to piece together the story of the people who once thrived in this silent world of stone and sky. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to our channel for more explorations into the mysteries of the past. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. We'll see you next time. Welcome back to our journey into the American Southwest. Today, we're stepping back in time, thousands of years, to uncover the origins of the ancestral Pueblo. Who were they before they built the magnificent cliff dwellings we so admire? Let's find out in Chapter 2, The Ancient Ones. Our story begins not with stone cities, but with a much older, more widespread tradition. The desert archaic culture. Picture this. It's around 1500 BCE. The landscape of the Four Corners region where Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah meet as a harsh but beautiful expanse of mesas, canyons, and high desert. For millennia small, mobile groups of hunter-gatherers have thrived here. These are the ancestors, the deep roots from which the Puebloan culture would eventually blossom. Life for these early peoples was a constant dance with the seasons. They were masters of their environment, possessing an encyclopedic knowledge of the land. They moved in cyclical patterns, following the ripening of wild plants and the migration of game. Imagine a family group packing up their few belongings: baskets, stone tools, animal hide blankets, and trekking from the low, warmer river valleys in the winter to the cooler, resource-rich uplands in the summer. What did they eat? Their diet was incredibly diverse. They hunted deer, bighorn sheep, and rabbits, using a revolutionary piece of technology called the atlatl, or spear. This device acted as an extension of the arm, allowing them to hurl a dart with incredible speed and accuracy, long before the bow and arrow arrived in the region. But hunting was only part of the story. They were expert foragers, gathering a huge variety of wild foods: pinnon nuts, yucca fruits, Indian ricegrass seeds, and countless other edible plants. Processing these foods was a major part of daily life. Women would spend hours grinding seeds on stone slabs called metates, creating nutritious flours. Their homes weren't permanent villages. Instead, they lived in temporary rock shelters or built simple brush structures, just enough to protect them from the elements. These weren't people tied to one place. Their home was the entire landscape. Their social structure was likely based on small, extended family bands. Cooperation was key to survival. Everyone had a role, from the most experienced hunter to the child learning to identify edible plants. You can still find traces of these ancient people etched into the land itself. The rock art they left behind, known as petroglyphs and pictographs, offers a tantalizing glimpse into their world. We see stylized human figures, animal tracks, and complex geometric designs. Are they hunting maps, records of celestial events? Spiritual visions? We may never know for sure, but they are a powerful testament to a rich ceremonial and intellectual life. They tell us these were not just survivors. They were artists, thinkers, and people with a deep connection to the cosmos. For thousands of years, this nomadic lifestyle defined human existence in the Southwest. It was a successful, sustainable way of life, perfectly adapted to a challenging environment. But something was on the horizon, a change that would slowly but surely alter their path forever. It was a humble plant, a type of grass cultivated far to the south in Mesoamerica. Maize, or corn. Around 2000 BCE, the first primitive strains of maize began to trickle into the Southwest, passed along ancient trade networks. At first, it wasn't a game changer. This early corn had tiny cobs and wasn't very productive. The archaic peoples likely treated it as just another seasonal wild plant, perhaps planting a few seeds in a moist arroyo and returning months later to see what grew. It was a supplement to their diet, not a staple. They were still primarily hunters and gatherers. But this small act of planting a seed was the beginning of a profound revolution. It represented a shift in thinking, a move from simply harvesting what nature provided to actively cultivating it. Over the next several centuries, more productive strains of maize, along with beans and squash, would make their way north. These three sisters of agriculture formed a perfect nutritional package. This slow, creeping adoption of agriculture is what marks the transition from the late Archaic period to what archaeologists call the basket maker, the period, earliest phase of ancestral Puebloan culture. It didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process, likely spanning many generations. Imagine a grandmother teaching her granddaughter how to forage for wild seeds, but also showing her how to plant a few precious corn kernels in a specially prepared plot of land. Why make the change? Why trade the freedom of a mobile life for the back-breaking work of farming? Perhaps a slight shift in climate made wild resources less reliable, or maybe the population was slowly growing, putting pressure on existing food sources. Farming, even on a small scale, offered a degree of predictability that hunting and gathering did not. A stored harvest of corn could mean the difference between starving and surviving a harsh winter. So, as we close this chapter, we leave these ancient people at a crucial turning point. They are no longer purely nomadic. They have taken the first tentative steps toward a new way of life, one that would tie them more closely to the land in two specific places. They are learning to be farmers. This single innovation, the cultivation of corn, would set in motion a chain of events that would lead to the rise of villages, the creation of stunning pottery, the building of complex societies, and eventually the construction of the great houses and cliff palaces of the ancestral Pueblo. The seeds of Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde were sown in these small, humble cornfields. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the past. The story's just getting started, and in our next episode, we'll explore how these first farmers, the basket makers, began to build the foundations of a truly remarkable civilization. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. See you then. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey through human history. Today, we're digging into one of the most revolutionary moments for civilization in the Americas. A story not of kings or conquests, but of seeds. Specifically, three remarkable plants: maize, beans, and squash. Get ready, because we are about to uncover how these three sisters literally planted the roots of entire civilizations. For thousands of years, early peoples in the Americas lived as hunters. Life was a constant journey, a relentless search for the next meal. Their existence was tied to the rhythm of migrating herds and the seasonal availability of wild plants. They were masters of their environment, possessing incredible knowledge of the land, but their societies were small, mobile, and constantly on the move. Imagine packing up your entire life every few weeks or months, following the food source. This nomadic lifestyle shaped their culture, their tools, and their very understanding of the world. It was a life of freedom, but also one of profound uncertainty. Then, something incredible happened. It wasn't a sudden event, but a slow, brilliant process of observation and experimentation. People began to notice that certain plants, if cared for, would grow again in the same place, year after year. They started with a wild grass called tio. It didn't look like much, a skinny stalk with a few tough kernels. But generation after generation, early farmers selected the plants with the biggest, softest kernels. They saved these seeds and replanted them. Over hundreds, even thousands of years, this patient process of selective breeding transformed teosinte into the plant we now know as maize, or corn. This was a game. Maize was a powerhouse of energy, packed with carbohydrates. It could be dried and stored, offering a reliable food source through lean winter months. This was a concept that was utterly revolutionary. For the first time, people didn't have to worry constantly about where their next meal was coming from. They had a surplus. But maize wasn't the whole story. On its own, it lacks some essential amino acids, like lysine and tryptophan, which are vital for human health. This is where the other two sisters come into play. Early agriculturalists noticed that beans, when planted alongside maize, would thrive. The corn stalks provided a natural trellis for the bean vines to climb, lifting them towards the sunlight. In return, the beans did something magical for the soil. They are nitrogen fixers, meaning they pull nitrogen from the air and convert it into a form that plants can use. Maize is a heavy feeder that depletes soil nitrogen, so the beans were essentially fertilizing the corn, allowing for sustainable, long-term farming in the same location. Nutritionally, they were a perfect pair. The beans provided the very amino acids that maize was missing. Eaten together, they formed a complete protein, the kind you'd typically only get from meat. This powerful combination provided a robust and balanced diet that could support a larger, healthier population. And then there was the third sister, squash. Planted at the base of the maize and beans, the large, sprawling leaves of the squash plants created a living mulch. They shaded the ground, preventing weeds from growing and competing for nutrients. This shade also helped the soil retain moisture by reducing evaporation from the sun. Furthermore, the prickly stems and leaves of the squash plants helped deter pests and animals that might want to nibble on the young corn and bean shoots. So, squash acted as a natural protector and preserver for the entire garden system. Together, this trio, maize for carbs and structure, beans for protein and nitrogen, and squash for vitamins and ground cover, created a nearly perfect, self-sustaining agricultural system. It's a testament to the sheer ecological genius of these early farmers. They weren't just planting seeds, they were designing a complete ecosystem. The impact of this three sisters agriculture was monumental. With a stable, abundant, and nutritious food supply, the need to constantly wander in search of food disappeared. For the first time, people could stay in one place. This is the moment when wanderers truly began to become settlers. And with settlement came the birth of the village. Why build a temporary shelter when you know you'll be here next year? People began to construct more permanent homes from wood, stone, and adobe. These small settlements slowly grew into larger villages, and then into bustling towns. Having a surplus of food also meant that not everyone needed to be a farmer. This is a crucial step in the development of any complex society. When you have more food than you need for immediate survival, you create possibilities. Some people could now specialize in other skills. Potters were needed to create vessels for storing the precious grain and cooking the beans. Weavers could focus on creating textiles. Toolmakers could refine their craft, creating better axes for clearing land and grinding stones for processing corn. Storage itself became a sophisticated science. People developed granaries and underground pits, carefully designed to keep the harvested crops dry and safe from pests and mold. The ability to store food for long periods provided a buffer against bad harvests and created a form of wealth. Food security was the bedrock upon which everything else was built. With people living together in larger groups, new social structures began to emerge. Leaders were needed to organize planting and harvesting, to manage the surplus, and to mediate disputes. Religious beliefs became more complex, often centered around the agricultural calendar. Ceremonies and rituals were developed to pray for rain, to celebrate the harvest, and to honor the spirits of the plants that sustained them. The three sisters were often central figures in creation, stories and myths, revered as divine gifts that brought life and prosperity to the people. This agricultural revolution wasn't just happening in one place. From the desert southwest to the woodlands of the northeast, and down through Mesoamerica and into South America, this model of farming, centered on these three incredible plants, was adapted and refined. It fueled the rise of great civilizations like the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca, as well as countless other cultures throughout the Americas. It allowed for the construction of great cities, the development of complex calendars, writing systems, and incredible works of art and architecture. So, the next time you see a field of corn, or eat a bowl of chili with beans and squash, take a moment to appreciate the profound legacy of these three plants. They are more than just food. They are the seeds of civilization. They represent one of the greatest innovations in human history, a testament to the ingenuity of our ancestors who learned to listen to the land and work in harmony with it. It was this agricultural partnership that allowed wanderers to put down roots, villages to flourish, and great cultures to rise. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into our past. It is truly amazing to see how something as small as a seed can change the course of human history. If you found this interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories from our shared past. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll see you next time. Welcome, Bike History Explorers, to our journey through the ancient Southwest. Last time, we saw how the first farmers began to settle down. Today, we're diving deep literally into the very foundations of their homes and communities. This is Chapter 4. From pit houses to Pueblo villages. Imagine you're living over 1,000 years ago. The landscape is vast. The weather can be harsh. Where do you find shelter? For the early ancestral Puebloans, the answer was right beneath their feet. They began by digging into the earth, creating what we call pit houses. These weren't just simple holes in the ground. They were cleverly engineered homes. A typical pit house was circular or D-shaped, excavated a few feet deep. The earth itself provided natural insulation, keeping the home cooler in the scorching summer and warmer during the frigid winter. To build the roof, they'd erect 4 sturdy wooden posts inside the pit to support a network of smaller beams. This framework was then covered with layers of brush, reeds, and finally, a thick coating of mud. When it dried, it formed a hard, durable shell. In the center of the roof, they left an opening. This served as both a chimney for the central fire pit and the front door, accessed by a ladder. It's amazing to think how they used only the materials around them to create such effective shelters. Inside, life was cozy. The fire pit was the heart of the home, used for cooking, warmth, and light. Benches were often carved into the earthen walls, providing places to sit or sleep. Small niches were dug out to store personal items. It was a self-contained, subterranean world. But these pit houses were more than just individual family dwellings. They were often clustered together, forming small hamlets. This arrangement hints at the very beginning of a shift towards a more communal way of life. People were living closer to their neighbors, sharing resources, and building the first seeds of community. As the centuries passed, something remarkable started to happen. The ancestral Puebloans began to build asterisk up asterisk, instead of asterisk down asterisk. This marks one of the most significant architectural evolutions in North American history. Why the change? Well, as the population grew, building above ground allowed for more homes in a smaller area. It also offered better defense and storage solutions. They started experimenting with new materials and techniques. Instead of just digging, they began to build walls using stone masonry. They would carefully select sandstone blocks, shape them, and stack them, using a mortar of mud to hold everything together. This was painstaking work, requiring incredible skill and precision. These early above-ground structures often started as single-story rooms, built right next to each other. But soon, they began to stack them, creating multi-story apartment-like buildings. This is the birth of the Pueblo, the Spanish word for village, which gives the ancestral Puebloans their name. As they built upwards, they incorporated a new material that would become iconic: adobe. Adobe is essentially a mixture of sand, clay, water, and a binding material like straw. This mixture was formed into bricks and left to dry in the sun. These adobe bricks were perfect for building strong, thick walls that provided excellent insulation, just like the earth of their old pit houses. So, the pit house didn't disappear entirely. It evolved. The sacred subterranean space transformed into the kiva. Kivas were special, usually circular, underground chambers built within the Pueblo. They remained the center of ceremonial and community life, a spiritual link back to their origins in the earth. While the families lived in the stone and adobe rooms above, the kiva was where the community came together for rituals, meetings, and storytelling, preserving their traditions. This transition from scattered pit houses to consolidated, multi-story pueblos was revolutionary. It wasn't just an architectural change, it was a social one. People were now living in large, interconnected complexes, sometimes housing hundreds of individuals. Think of it like a modern apartment building, but built over 800 years ago. Living this closely required new levels of cooperation and social organization. You had to share walls, plazas, and resources. You had to work together to maintain the village, defend it, and manage a complex agricultural system to feed everyone. The plaza, the open central area in the Pueblo, became the new heart of daily life, a space for work, socializing, and public ceremonies. This shift created the incredible villages we can still see today at places like Chaco Canyon in New Mexico or Mesa Verde in Colorado. These are not just ruins. They are monuments to an ingenious people who adapted, innovated, and built thriving, complex societies from the ground up. They transformed their relationship with the landscape, creating architectural marvels that have stood the test of time, from a simple pit dug into the ground to towering stone cities. The journey of the ancestral Puebloan home is a story of resilience, ingenuity, and the power of community. It shows us how architecture isn't just about shelter. It's about how we choose to live together. Thank you so much for joining me on this architectural adventure. I hope you have a new appreciation for these ancient structures. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next chapter, where we'll explore the mysteries of Chaco Canyon. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient Americas. Today, we venture into the arid, sun-drenched landscape of what is now northwestern New Mexico. Here, in a seemingly inhospitable canyon, one of North America's most spectacular and enigmatic cultures rose to prominence. This is the story of Chaco Canyon, the heart of the ancestral Puebloan world. Around 900 CE, while Europe was deep in the Middle Ages, something extraordinary was happening in the American Southwest. A cultural explosion was underway, and its epicenter was Chaco. For over 3 centuries, this canyon served as the dominant center for ceremony, trade, and administration for the Puebloan people. It wasn't just a village. It was a sprawling, interconnected metropolis of stone and spirit that influenced a region the size of Ireland. Imagine stepping back in time, 1,000 years ago. The canyon floor is bustling with activity. The air is filled with the sounds of stonemasons chipping away at sandstone. The murmur of different dialects from visiting traders and the distant call of a macaw. A brightly colored bird brought from hundreds of miles south in Mesoamerica. What you see before you are not simple dwellings, but monumental structures known as great houses. These are the architectural wonders of Chaco. Let's talk about these great houses. They are masterpieces of engineering and design. The largest and most famous is Pueblo Bonito, a Spanish name meaning beautiful town. And beautiful it was. Pueblo Bonito was a massive, D-shaped complex, rising 4 to 5 stories high and containing over 650 rooms. To build Tis, the Chacons quarried and meticulously shaped millions of sandstone blocks, creating intricate masonry patterns that are still admired today. They used timber beams for roofing, some of which were massive logs weighing over 600 pounds, hauled from forests over 50 miles away without the use of wheeled vehicles or draft animals. This was a colossal undertaking, requiring immense coordination and a shared vision. Pueblo Bonito was not alone. At least a dozen other great houses. The canyon floor and surrounding mesas like Chetroqueto, Jungo Pavi, and Una Vida. These weren't just apartment buildings. Many rooms lacked the features of daily living, like fire hearths, suggesting they were used for storage, ceremony, or as accommodations for pilgrims. The scale is staggering. These buildings were the largest in North America until the 19th century. They were designed to impress, to project power, and to serve as a gathering place for people from across the vast San Juan Basin. But the genius of the Chacoans wasn't limited to their architecture. They were also master astronomers, deeply attuned to the cycles of the sun and moon. The placement and alignment of their buildings are no accident. The major walls of Pueblo Bonito, for example, are aligned with the cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. Other structures are precisely oriented to mark the solstices and equinoxes. Perhaps the most famous example of this celestial knowledge is the Sun Dagger petroglyph on Fajada Butte, a prominent landform at the entrance to the canyon. Here, 3 massive stone slabs lean against the cliff face, creating a sliver of light that acts as a solar calendar. At the summer solstice, a single dagger of light pierces the center of a large spiral carved into the rock. At the winter solstice, 2 daggers frame the spiral, and at the equinoxes, smaller daggers mark other spirals. This was their clock, their calendar, their sacred connection to the cosmos, marking the times for planting, harvesting, and ceremony. It demonstrates a profound understanding of the heavens, passed down through generations. The influence of Chaco extended far beyond the canyon walls. Connecting this central hub to over 150 other great houses scattered across the region was an intricate and remarkably engineered road system. These weren't simple footpaths. The Chacoan roads were wide, straight, and often extended for dozens of miles across the desert. They were excavated to be remarkably level and didn't deviate for topographical obstacles. If a cliff was in the way, they carved stairways into the rock. If a small hill was in the path, they cut right through it. Why build such elaborate roads? Their purpose is still debated. They were likely pilgrimage routes, guiding people from outlying communities to the ceremonial heart of the canyon. They could have facilitated the movement of goods and resources, like timber, pottery, turquoise, and food. But their straightness and grandeur suggest a symbolic purpose as well, perhaps, representing spiritual pathways or demonstrating the far-reaching power and organization of the Chacoan system. Walking these ancient roads today, you can't help but feel the intention and the connection they represented. Chaco was a vibrant center of trade and culture. Archaeologists have found evidence of goods from far-flung places. Turquoise, which was sacred and highly valued, was mined and processed here in vast quantities. Before being traded, they imported seashells from the Pacific coast, copper bells, and brilliantly plumed macaws and parrots from Mexico. In return, the distinct black-on-white Chacoan pottery was exported throughout the region. This wasn't an isolated community. It was a cosmopolitan hub, a true cultural center that drew people and ideas from across the continent. The society that built Chaco was clearly complex and highly organized. The sheer scale of the construction, the astronomical alignments, and the road network all point to a sophisticated social structure with leaders who could command large labor forces and specialists like architects, engineers, and astronomers. Was there a ruling elite? A priestly class? While we don't have written records, the evidence in the architecture and burials suggests a hierarchical society, a departure from the more egalitarian village life that preceded it. For a few hundred years, Chaco was the undeniable center of its world, a place of immense spiritual power, architectural innovation, and cultural exchange. But this golden age was not to last forever. By the mid-1100s, construction slowed, and by 1300, the canyon was largely abandoned. Why did they leave? What happened to the people who built this magnificent civilization? That is a story for our next chapter, where we will explore the decline of Chaco and the migration of its people. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the incredible rise of Chaco Canyon. It stands as a powerful testament to the ingenuity and spirit of the ancestral Puebloan people. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and do not forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you do not miss our next episode. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient world. Today, we're venturing into the heart of the American Southwest, to a place where a civilization literally wrote its story in stone. Chaco Canyon. This isn't just a collection of old ruins. It was the bustling center of a vast and sophisticated society. Let's uncover the secrets of this incredible place. Imagine standing in the middle of a sun-drenched canyon, surrounded by monumental great houses, some soaring 4 or 5 stories high. These aren't just simple dwellings. They are architectural marvels, meticulously planned and constructed with millions of sandstone blocks and thousands of wooden beams, all without the help of wheels or draft animals. This is Chaco and for over 300 years, from about 850 to 1158. It was the ceremonial, administrative, and economic heart of the ancestral Puebloan world. So, what made Chaco so special? It wasn't just its impressive buildings. It was the people and the intricate society they built. Think of Chaco as the capital city of its time. It was a place of immense spiritual and political power, drawing people from hundreds of miles around. Archaeologists believe that while only a small number of people lived in the great houses, thousands would travel here for seasonal ceremonies and major events. These gatherings were likely spectacular, filled with rituals, feasts, and community activities that reinforced social and religious bonds across the entire region. The great kavas, massive circular chambers built for these ceremonies, are a testament to the importance of community and spiritual life at Chaco. One of the most mind-boggling aspects of Chaco is its road system. Archaeologists have identified over 400 miles of ancient roads radiating out from the canyon. These weren't simple footpaths. They were wide strat-engineered causeways, sometimes up to 30 feet across. They cut across the landscape, over mesas and through valleys, connecting Chaco to over 150 outlying communities. Why build such extensive roads? They were more than just travel routes. They were symbolic arteries, binding the region together and funneling goods, people, and ideas into the canyon's core. Imagine pilgrimages along these roads, with people from distant villages all journeying toward the sacred center. And what was moving along these roads? An astonishing array of trade goods that revealed just how connected Chaco was. While the local area provided essentials like food, pottery, and stone tools, the most prized items came from far, far away. Turquoise, the sacred stone of the Southwest, was mined throughout the region and brought to Chaco in immense quantities. Workshops in the canyon turned this raw turquoise into exquisite jewelry beads, pendants, and intricate mosaics that were then traded even further. We're talking about a level of craftsmanship that is simply stunning. But the trade network didn't stop at turquoise. Evidence found at Chaco tells a story of a truly continental reach. Seashells, like shimmering abalone and spiny oyster, made their way here from the Pacific coast and the Gulf of California, hundreds of miles away. These weren't just pretty ornaments. They held deep spiritual significance and were symbols of prestige and power. Finding these ocean treasures in the middle of a desert canyon highlights the incredible distances these ancient traders covered. Perhaps the most exotic trade goods of all were the macaws. Scarlet macaws, with their brilliant red, yellow, and blue feathers, are not native to the Southwest. Their natural habitat is in the tropical forests of Mexico and Central America, over 1,000 miles to the south. Yet, skeletal remains and feathers of these birds have been discovered in Chacoan sites. The people of Chaco were raising these birds, likely for their precious feathers, which were used in sacred ceremonies and regalia. This tells us that Chaco's influence and trade connections extended deep into Mesoamerica, linking the Puebloan world with the complex civilizations of ancient Mexico. This exchange wasn't just one way. Chacoan pottery, known for its distinctive black-on-white designs, has been found far from the canyon. A clear sign that Chaco is exporting its own cultural products. This vast network wasn't just for moving goods. It was a network for moving ideas, architectural styles, religious concepts, and astronomical knowledge flowed through these connections, with Chaco acting as the central hub where all this information was gathered, synthesized, and read. The sheer scale of organization required to build the great houses, engineer the roads, and manage this extensive trade network is staggering. This wasn't a simple, egalitarian society. It was a complex, hierarchical one, likely with a religious or political elite who orchestrated these massive undertakings. They were planners, astronomers, engineers, and spiritual leaders who guided their society for centuries. The alignment of many Chacoan buildings with solar and lunar cycles shows a deep understanding of the cosmos, knowledge that would have been essential for timing agricultural cycles and religious ceremonies. So, When we look at Chaco Canyon, we're not just seeing ancient walls. We're seeing a society written in stone. We see a ceremonial center that united a people, an administrative hub that organized vast public works, and a commercial nexus that reached across the continent. From the brilliant blue of turquoise to the iridescent shimmer of seashells and the shocking red of macaw feathers from Mexico, the story of Chaco is a story of connection, power, and a profound understanding of their world. It's a testament to the incredible achievements of the ancestral Puebloan people. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into Chaco Canyon. It's a place that continues to inspire awe and wonder. If you found this journey as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you do miss our next adventure into the past. See you next time. Have you ever stood in a place so vast, so ancient, that you felt a deep connection to something much larger than yourself? For the ancestral Puebloans, this wasn't just a fleeting feeling. It was the very essence of their existence. Their world was a living, breathing cathedral, a spiritual landscape where the earth, the sky, and the unseen spirits were woven into a single, sacred tapestry. Welcome back to our series. Today, we journey into the heart of this worldview, exploring Chapter 7. Spiritual landscapes will uncover how majestic mesas, mysterious kivas, and towering mountains were not just features of the land, but divine teachers that shaped every facet of their lives. For the ancestral Puebloans, the landscape wasn't a backdrop, it was a participant. Imagine waking up each day to the sight of a massive mesa, its flat top reaching towards the heavens like a natural altar. These weren't just geological formations. They were earth mothers, powerful entities that provided protection, sustenance, and a tangible link to the cosmos. Living on or below these great stone giants, the people felt a constant sense of being held and watched over. The cliffs themselves were sacred pages, where stories were etched in petroglyphs and pictographs, recording celestial events, clan histories, and spiritual visions for future generations to read. The very act of climbing a steep trail to a cliff dwelling was a pilgrimage, a physical reminder of the effort required to live in balance with these powerful forces. If the mesas were the grand cathedrals, then the kivas were the intimate chapels, the spiritual wombs of the community. These circular, subterranean chambers were architectural marvels designed to mirror the cosmos and the origin stories of the people. Descending a ladder through the roof, or the Saipapu, as it was symbolically known, was like returning to the primordial world from which their ancestors emerged. This small hole in the floor represented the portal from the underworld, a constant reminder of their sacred origins. Inside the kiva, surrounded by the cool, dark earth, the separation between the physical and spiritual worlds dissolved. It was here that elders passed down sacred knowledge. Ceremonies were performed to ensure rain and successful harvests, and community members reaffirmed their bonds with each other in the spirit world. The smoke from the central fire pit would rise through the hatchway, carrying prayers and messages directly to the sky spirits. The horizon was dominated by sacred mountains, colossal peaks that were seen as the homes of powerful deities and cloud spirits. Mountains like the San Francisco Peaks in Arizona or Mount Taylor in New Mexico were pillars that held up the sky, their snowy caps acting as reservoirs that fed the life-giving streams and rivers below. These peaks were cardinal points in a spiritual compass, grounding the people in their territory and defining the boundaries of their sacred world. Young men would make arduous pilgrimages to these high places to seek visions, gather powerful medicines, and connect with the raw power of nature. The mountains were considered bringers of rain, their peaks often shrouded in clouds that promised moisture for the corn, beans, and squash that sustained the people. Every storm, every cloud formation gathering around a peak was a divine communication, a sign that the spirits were listening and responding to the people's needs and ceremonies. This profound connection between the earth and the sky was a daily reality. The sun, a powerful deity, dictated the rhythms of life. Its journey across the sky was meticulously tracked using natural rock formations and carefully constructed solar observatories. The solstices and equinoxes were not just astronomical events. They were the most important religious festivals of the year, marking critical times for planting, harvesting, and major ceremonies. A shadow cast by a specific rock spire falling upon a spiral petroglyph on the summer solstice was a direct message from the cosmos, affirming that the world was in balance and the people were in harmony with its cycles. The moon, the stars, and the Milky Way were a celestial map, filled with stories of gods, heroes, and animal spirits. Stargazing wasn't a hobby. It was a form of prayer, a way of reading the intentions of the sky spirits. Everything in their world was imbued with spirit. The wind that whispered through the canyons carried the voices of ancestors. The river that carved the landscape was a living entity, its flow a metaphor for the journey of life. Animals, too, were spiritual messengers. The eagle soaring high above was a conduit to the sky realm, its feathers considered sacred tools for prayer. The clever raven, the powerful bear, the agile deerol were respected as kin, holding wisdom and power that humans could learn from. To harm an animal or waste a resource was not just impractical, it was a spiritual offense, an act that could disrupt the delicate balance and bring misfortune upon the entire community. This worldview fostered a deep and abiding respect for all living things, an ethic of conservation born from spiritual necessity. This interconnectedness guided every decision. When choosing a place to build a village, they looked for sites that offered not just water and defense, but spiritual resonance. The architecture itself was a form of prayer, with buildings oriented to align with celestial events. Farming was a cooperative act between humans and the spirits of the earth and rain. A farmer didn't just plant seeds. They made offerings, sang songs, and prayed for the corn to grow, acknowledging that its life was a gift from the Earth Mother and the Sky Father. Even illness was understood in a spiritual context, often seen as a symptom of being out of harmony with the natural and spiritual world. Healing involves ceremonies designed to restore that balance, to bring the individual back into right relationship with the cosmos, the community, and the land. This spiritual landscape wasn't just a belief system. It was a way of being. It fostered a sense of belonging, not just to a clan or a village, but to the entire cosmos. It taught humility, reminding the people that they were one small but essential part of a much larger, sacred whole. It demanded responsibility, as the well-being of the community depended on maintaining a harmonious relationship with the spirits of the land and sky, and it provided a deep sense of purpose and meaning, where every action, from grinding corn to weaving a basket, was a sacred act that contributed to the cosmic balance. The mesas, kivas, and mountains were the physical anchors of their faith, the ever-present reminders of who they were and their place in the universe. As we stand here today, in the silence of these canyons, we can still feel the echo of that worldview. The stones still hold the warmth of ancient suns, and the wind still seems to whisper forgotten stories. The legacy of the Ancestral Puebloans is a powerful reminder that, for some, the land is not something to be owned or conquered, but a sacred relative to be loved, respected, and listened to. Their spiritual landscape teaches us that our connection to the world around us can be our greatest source of strength, wisdom, and grace. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the spiritual heart of the Ancestral Puebloan world. If you found this exploration meaningful, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the past. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through time. Today, we're venturing into the sun-drenched landscapes of the American Southwest to uncover the secrets of its earliest master builders. In a land of stark beauty and extreme conditions, an ancient people, the Ancestral Puebloans, didn't just survive. They thrived, creating architectural marvels that continue to astound us. Forget simple huts. We're talking about sprawling, multi-story, stone cities, built with a precision that rivals modern construction. Get ready to explore the world of the architects of the desert. Imagine a bustling community, not spread out across the land, but rising vertically towards the brilliant blue sky. This was the reality in places like Chaco Canyon, the cultural heart of the Ancestral Puebloan world. They constructed what we now call great houses, massive D-shaped structures that were part apartment complex, part ceremonial center, and part astronomical observatory. These weren't haphazardly thrown together. The builders were expert masons, quarrying massive sandstone blocks and shaping them with stone tools. They developed sophisticated techniques, creating strong, stable walls with a distinctive and beautiful veneer of smaller, carefully fitted stones. Some of these buildings soared up to 5 stories high, containing hundreds of interconnected rooms. For a society without metal tools, beasts of burden, or the wheel, this was an incredible feat of engineering and communal effort. At the heart of Chaco Canyon lies the most famous of these great houses, Pueblo. The name means beautiful town, and it's an understatement. This single structure, covering over 2 acres, once contained more than 650 rooms. Think of it as the original megastructure of North America. Its semicircular design is iconic, with a massive straight wall closing off the plaza, which itself was dotted with numerous kiva subterranean circular chambers used for ceremonies and social gatherings. Walking through its ruins today, you can still feel the ambition of its creators. The walls, some still standing after nearly 1,000 years of exposure to the elements, are a testament to their skill. They used different styles of masonry over the centuries of its construction, allowing archaeologists to read the building's history like the pages of a book. Pueblo Bonito wasn't just a place to live. It was a statement of power, culture, and cosmic understanding. Just a short walk from Pueblo Bonito is another giant, Chaco. While Pueblo Bonito is famous for its size, Chaco is renowned for its sheer length and complexity. It features an enormous back wall stretching over 500 feet long. Archaeologists estimate that tens of millions of sandstone blocks and over 25,000 trees were used in its construction. Think about that for a moment. The timber had to be hauled from mountain ranges over 50 miles away, without any pack animals. This implies an astonishing level of social organization and a shared vision that united thousands of people. Chaco also boasts a massive colonnade along its plaza and what appears to be a great kiva, over 60 feet in diameter, likely the central hub for the entire canyon's religious life. Together, Pueblo Bonito and Chaco represent the pinnacle of Chaco's architectural achievement, a testament to a society that could command immense resources and labor. But the genius of these architects wasn't just in building big, it was in building smart. Their understanding of the cosmos was woven directly into the stone. Many of the great houses, along with other key sites, are precisely aligned with the movements of the sun and moon. The most famous example is the Sun Dagger petroglyph on Fajada Butte, where precisely placed stone slabs channel light into daggers that mark the solstices and equinoxes on a spiral carving. But this cosmic connection is also present in the architecture itself. The primary walls of Pueblo Bonito and Chaco are oriented along cardinal directions. Certain windows and corner doorways are perfectly positioned to frame the rising sun on the summer or winter solstice. Imagine waking up on the shortest day of the year, and as the sun rises, a single beam of light shoots through a specific opening to illuminate the back wall of a room. This wasn't accidental. It was a calendar, a clock, and a sacred connection to the cycles of nature, all built into their homes. This astronomical precision ensured they could track the seasons for planting and harvesting, and it reinforced the spiritual order of their world. The construction techniques themselves were remarkably advanced. The core of the walls was made of a rough rubble and mud mortar, which was then faced with an exquisite veneer of carefully shaped sandstone. This veneer wasn't just decorative. It provided a durable, protective layer against the harsh desert weather. You can see the evolution of their masonry styles over time, from simple, rough-cut stones to intricate patterns that are as much art as they are engineering. They also understood structural needs, tapering the walls so they were thicker at the base and thinner at the top to support the immense weight. Wooden beams, or vegas, supported the floors and roofs of each story, and their empty sockets still dot the walls of the ruins today, giving us a ghostly impression of the once vibrant interior spaces. So, why did they build these magnificent structures in such a challenging environment? Chaco Canyon wasn't an easy place to live. It was arid, with unpredictable rainfall. Yet, for over 300 years, it was a thriving cultural and economic center. The great houses likely served multiple purposes. They were residences for a large population, but perhaps only for an elite class or during specific ceremonial times. They were massive storage facilities for food, which was crucial in a boom-and-bust agricultural environment. They were also the center stage for elaborate ceremonies that drew people from hundreds of miles around, connected by a vast network of engineered roads that radiated out from the canyon. The architecture was a symbol of this centrality, a physical manifestation of their social and religious power. It was designed to impress, to inspire and to create a sense of unity among a diverse and widespread population. By the mid-1100s, the golden age of Chaco began to wane. A prolonged drought, combined with social and political changes, led people to gradually migrate away from the canyon. They moved to new centers like Mesa Verde and the Rio Grande Valley, taking their architectural knowledge with them, adapting it to new landscapes and new needs. But the legacy of the original architects of the desert was set in stone. The silent, majestic ruins of Pueblo Bonito, Chaco, and the other great houses remain a powerful reminder of a time when a people, armed with little more than stone, wood, and an incredible vision, built cities in the desert that were aligned with the heavens. They demonstrate a profound connection to their environment and a deep understanding of the cosmos, a wisdom that continues to inspire us today. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the architecture of the ancestral Pueblo. The ingenuity of these ancient builders is truly mind-blowing. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the history of the ancestral Pueblo. In our last chapter, we saw thriving communities and great houses across the Chacoan world. But as we enter the late 12th and early 13th centuries, something remarkable happens. The people begin to move, undertaking one of the most astonishing architectural feats in human history. This is the era of the cliff dwellers. Imagine, for a moment, leaving the sprawling, open pueblos on the canyon floors and mesa tops, and moving your entire community into the very rock face of the cliffs. Around the year 1200, this is precisely what happened in places that we now call Mesa Verde in Colorado and Canyon de Chelly in Arizona. The iconic images many of us have of the ancestral Puebloans' multi-storied stone villages tucked into massive, arched alcoves high above the canyon floor come from this incredible period. Let's journey to Mesa Verde. Here, structures like Cliff Palace and Balcony House are masterpieces of engineering and community planning. Cliff Palace, the largest cliff dwelling in North America, contained around 150 rooms and 23 keys. It wasn't a palace for royalty, but a bustling, vibrant town sheltered by a colossal sandstone overhang. These weren't crude shelters. They were sophisticated, multi-story apartment complexes, complete with living quarters, storage rooms, and ceremonial keep, all meticulously constructed from sandstone blocks and mortar. The craftsmanship is breathtaking. Walls are perfectly shaped. Doorways and windows are strategically placed, and everything is designed to fit organically within the natural curve of the cliff. Further south, in Canyon de Chelly, you find equally stunning sights, like the White House ruin. Here, a structure appears to grow directly out of the base of a sheer 1,000-foot cliff, with another section of the village nestled in a small alcove directly above it. Getting to these homes required incredible skill and bravery, using a series of hand and toe-hold trails carved directly into the rock face. Life was lived on the edge, quite literally. Daily tasks, from fetching water to farming on the canyon floor below, involved navigating these precarious paths. This brings us to the great mystery. Why? Why would thousands of people abandon their established homes to build these elaborate, hard-to-reach cliff cities? Archaeologists and historians have debated this for decades, and there are three leading theories, which might all play a part in the story. The first, and perhaps most obvious, theory is protection. The late 1200s were a time of increasing social instability and potential conflict. The world was changing, populations were shifting, and resources may have become scarcer. Building a village inside a cliff alcove creates a natural fortress, with limited and ISLE-controlled access points. A cliff dwelling is highly defensible. From their high vantage point, residents could see anyone approaching from miles away. This doesn't necessarily mean large-scale warfare, but it could point to a need for security from raiding parties or other competing groups. The architecture itself seems to speak of a need to feel safe and secure. The second major theory revolves around climate change. We have strong evidence from tree rings dendrochronology Severe. Prolonged drought, known as the Great Drought, struck the region in the late 13th century, but environmental challenges were already beginning earlier. By moving into these massive cliff alcoves, the Ancestral Puebloans found a brilliant climate control solution. The rock overhang provided shade from the intense summer sun, keeping the village cool. In the winter, the low-angled sun would shine deep into the alcove, warming the stone, which would then radiate heat throughout the night. Furthermore, many of these alcoves had natural seeps, springs of water trickling out of the rock itself, which would have been an invaluable resource during dry periods. Living in the cliffs was a genius adaptation to a harsher, more unpredictable environment. The third theory looks beyond the practical and into the spiritual. Religion and cosmology were deeply woven into every aspect of ancestral Puebloan life. The cliffs, the sky, and the earth below were sacred spaces. It's possible that this monumental move was driven by a religious or ideological shift. Perhaps the cliffs were seen as a spiritually potent place, a connection point between the underworld, the earth, and the sky world. The kivas, the centers of ceremonial life, remain central to the layout of these cliff villages. The act of living within the earth, in the womb of the mother cliff, may have held profound spiritual significance. This move could have been a collective expression of faith, a way to realign their community with the cosmic order during a time of change. So, which theory is correct? Protection, climate, or religion? The most likely answer is that it wasn't just one of these factors, but a complex interplay of all three. Imagine a time of environmental stress due to changing weather patterns. This stress leads to competition over resources like water and arable land, which in turn leads to social tension and conflict. In response to these pressures, a community might choose to move to a location that is not only defensible and has better climate regulation, but also holds deep spiritual importance, a place to reaffirm their connection to the sacred world and find stability in uncertain times. The cliff-dwelling period represents an incredible moment of resilience, ingenuity, and cultural strength. Faced with immense challenges, the Ancestral Puebloans didn't just survive. They created some of the most enduring and awe-inspiring architecture on the continent. These silent cities of stone, tucked into the cliffs, are a powerful testament to their ability to adapt and thrive. But this chapter, as brilliant as it is, was also fleeting. By the year 1300, after less than a century, these magnificent cliff dwellings were empty. The people had moved on once again. In our next and final chapter, we will explore the Great Migration, asking where the cliff dwellers went and who their descendants are today. Thank you so much for joining me on this part of the journey. If you're enjoying this series, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and ringing the bell so you don't miss our final episode. We'll see you next time. Welcome, history lovers and adventure seekers. Today, we journey to southwestern Colorado, to a place where a city seems to defy gravity, a place that whispers tales of an ancient people. We're exploring the awe-inspiring Mesa Verde National Park and its crown jewel, the magnificent Cliff Palace. Imagine, for a moment, traveling back in time nearly 1,000 years. You're not looking at a city built on the ground, but one masterfully tucked into the very heart of a sheer sandstone cliff. This isn't science fiction. This is the reality of the ancestral Pueblo people who called this incredible place home. Cliff Palace is the largest cliff dwelling in North America. It's a breathtaking architectural marvel. Picture a sprawling complex of over 150 individual rooms and more than 20 kivista circular subterranean chambers used for ceremonies and social gatherings. This wasn't just a shelter. It was a vibrant, bustling community. A true city in the sky. So, how did they do it? And more importantly, why? The construction of Cliff Palace, beginning around 1190 CE, showcases an extraordinary understanding of engineering and architecture. The builders used locally sourced sandstone blocks, meticulously shaped and held together with a mortar of soil, water, and ash. You can even see the fingerprints of the ancient masons preserved in the mortar, a tangible connection to the past. The placement of the city was no accident. The massive cliff alcove provided natural protection from the scorching summer sun, the harsh winter winds, and the unpredictable elements. Think of it as nature's perfect apartment building. During winter, the low-angled sun would reach deep into the alcove, warming the stone and the homes within. In Mesa Verde, the high sun would be blocked by the overhang, keeping the village cool and shaded. It was brilliant, passive solar design, centuries before the term was even invented. Let's take a walk through this ancient metropolis. The structures weren't just simple rooms. They were multi-story apartment complexes. Some towers reached for stories high, a testament to the builder's skill. Getting around required navigating a series of narrow ledges hand-and-to-hold trails carved into the rock face, and wooden ladders. It was a vertical world, demanding agility and a head for heights. Now, let's talk about those mysterious keys. These sacred spaces were the heart of the community. Here, clans would gather, ceremonies would be performed, and important community decisions would be made. The design is symbolic. A small hole in the floor, called a sipepu, represented the place where the people's ancestors emerged from the underworld. The kivas connected the community not just to each other, but to their spiritual beliefs and their origins. What was daily life like in Cliff Palace? Based on archaeological evidence, we know it was a thriving community of about 100 people. Imagine the sounds: the grinding of corn on a metate, the chatter of families, the laughter of children echoing off the canyon walls. They were skilled farmers, cultivating corn, beans, and squash on the fertile mesa tops above their cliffside homes. They would climb up and down the cliffs daily to tend their fields and hunt for game like deer and rabbit. They were also master artisans. Archaeologists have discovered incredible pottery, painted with intricate black-on-white designs, as well as beautifully woven baskets, yucca fiber sandals, and feather blankets. Each artifact tells a story, offering a glimpse into their culture, their artistry, and their resourcefulness. They used every part of their environment, wasting nothing. One of the most impressive features of Cliff Palace is its defensive design. The city's location itself made it difficult for outsiders to approach unnoticed. The limited and challenging entry points could be easily guarded. Some historians believe this points to a period of conflict or competition for resources. Life in the 13th century wasn't always peaceful, and the design of Cliff Palace reflects a need for security and community protection. But then, after less than a century of occupation, something remarkable happened. By the year 1300, Cliff Palace and all the other cliff dwellings in Mesa Verde was empty. The city fell silent. This is one of the greatest mysteries of the American Southwest. Why did they leave? There isn't one single answer, but rather a combination of factors. A prolonged period of severe drought, which we can see in the tree-ring data from the period, would have made farming on the mesa tops nearly impossible. This climate change led to crop failures and a scarcity of water and food. Social and religious factors may have also played a role. The people of Mesa Verde didn't just disappear. They migrated. They moved south and east, towards areas with more reliable water sources, like the Rio Grande Valley in New Mexico and the Hopi Mesas in Arizona. Their descendants live in these areas today, in the modern Pueblo communities. The stories and traditions of their ancestors' migration from the north are still passed down through generations. Visiting Cliff Palace today is a profound experience. As you stand within its walls, surrounded by the towering cliffs and the vast canyon below, you can't help but feel a deep sense of respect for the people who built it. They were not a primitive people. They were innovators, engineers, artists, and survivors who created a sustainable society in one of the most challenging environments imaginable. Mesa Verde, meaning green table in Spanish, is a landscape of parados y salush, green mesa top, that gives way to arid, dramatic canyons. And within those canyons, Cliff Palace stands as a silent, powerful testament to human ingenuity and resilience. It reminds us that civilizations rise and fall, and that people have always adapted to a changing world. It's a story written in stone, a chapter of human history that continues to captivate and inspire us. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey to the incredible city in the sky. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures into the past. Let me know in the comments what ancient site you'd like to explore next. Until then, keep exploring. Close your eyes for a moment. Can you hear it? The gentle scrape of clay being shaped, the rhythmic thump of a loom, the murmur of stories carried on the wind. This isn't a story of kings or conquests. This is the story of us, of the everyday moments that weave the fabric of community. Welcome back, as we step into the heart of a village perched high on a sun-drenched mesa. Imagine waking with the first light, the air crisp and clean. The sun crests the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, a daily spectacle that renews the spirit. This is the signal to begin. Farmers, with tools of wood and stone, make their way to the fields on the mesa top. Here, life depends on a deep understanding of the land. They aren't just planting seeds. They are having a conversation with the earth, coaxing life from the arid soil. Corn, beans, and squash, the three sisters grow together, supporting one another, a living lesson in cooperation that mirrors the community itself. Every drop of water is precious, every sprout a victory. This isn't just agriculture. It's a sacred trust, a partnership between people and the land that sustains them. Back in the village, the air hums with a different kind of industry. Find a shaded courtyard, and you'll discover the potters. Watch as their skilled hands transform a simple lump of earth-toned clay. It's a magical process. The clay is coiled, pinched, and smoothed, rising into a vessel that is both beautiful and useful. Each pot tells a story. The geometric patterns, the stylized birds, the swirling lines, they aren't just decoration. They are symbols of their cosmology, prayers for rain, representations of the natural world. The final step, firing the pots in an open pit, is a moment of suspense and transformation. It's a process that requires patience, skill, and a little bit of faith, turning soft clay into enduring ceramic, a vessel ready to hold water, store grain, or serve a communal meal. Nearby, another rhythm fills the air, the soft, steady beat of the loom. Weaving is more than just creating cloth. It's an art form passed down through generations, using fibers from yucca plants and later, cotton cultivated with great care. Weavers create intricate textiles. The patterns they weave are a language of their own, telling stories of their ancestors, their beliefs, and their connection to the cosmos. The blankets will provide warmth on cold desert nights. The sashes will adorn ceremonial attire. But more than that, they are threads of identity, binding the past to the present. Each pass of the shuttle is a deliberate motion, a meditation in thread, creating something that is both practical and profoundly meaningful. As the sun begins its descent, casting long shadows across the plaza, the day's work winds down. Families gather, the aroma of roasting corn and savory stews filling the air. This is a time for connection, for sharing food and laughter. It's in these simple moments that the bonds of community are strengthened. After the meal, as the first stars begin to prick the velvety darkness of the desert sky, a fire is lit in the center of the plaza. Its warm glow draws everyone closer, from the youngest child to the most respected elder. Now, the storyteller takes their place. The crackling fire illuminates their expressive face as they begin to speak. The stories they tell are the soul of the people. They are tales of creation, of heroic ancestors, of clever coyote, and of the sacred relationship with the spirit world. These aren't just entertainment. They are living history, moral lessons, and a guide to understanding the world. The children listened with wide eyes, absorbing the wisdom of their people, ensuring that these timeless tales will be passed on to the next generation, and the generation after that. The firelight dances, the shadows play, and for a moment, the characters in the stories feel as real as the people gathered around the flames. Life here is intimately connected to the great cycles of the sky. The people are expert astronomers, their architecture and their ceremonies aligned with the sun, the moon, and the stars. The winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, is a time for reflection and renewal, a promise of the sun's return. The summer solstice marks the peak of the sun's power, a celebration of light and life. These seasonal ceremonies are not just rituals. They are the community's way of participating in the cosmic dance. Through song, dance, and prayer, they honor the celestial bodies that govern the seasons, guide their planting, and shape their spiritual lives. The movements of the stars are a calendar, a map, and a sacred text written across the night sky. From the farmer tending his crops on the mesa top to the weaver at her loom, from the child listening to a story by the fire to the elders tracking the movements of the stars of reaction is part of a greater whole. This is a community woven together not just by proximity, but by shared work, shared stories, and a shared reverence for the world around them. It is a life of purpose, where every day is an opportunity to contribute, to create, and to honor the intricate, beautiful web of existence. It reminds us that community isn't just about living near each other. It's about living for each other, in harmony with the earth and the sky. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the heart of daily life. It's in these quiet, everyday moments that we find the true strength and beauty of human culture. If you found this glimpse into the past as fascinating as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories. We'd love to have you in our community. Until next time, take care. Welcome back, history lovers and spiritual seekers, to our journey through the wonders of ancient cultures. Today, we're descending into the heart of ancestral Pueblo life, into a space that is both architecturally fascinating and profoundly sacred. We're exploring the Kiva. Imagine stepping out of the bright desert sun and climbing down a wooden ladder into a cool, subterranean chamber. The air changes, the light softens, and you feel an immediate sense of entering another world. This is the Kiva, the spiritual center of the Puebloan people. It wasn't just a building, it was the nexus of community, ceremony, and the cosmos itself. The word Kiva comes from the Hopi language, and these structures are found throughout the American Southwest, from Mesa Verde to Chaco Canyon. But what makes them so special? Let's start with their design. Most Kivas are circular, dug into the earth, and roofed with heavy wooden beams and adobe mud, leaving them almost hidden within the landscape. This subterranean placement is deeply symbolic. For the Puebloan people, it represents the womb of Mother Earth, the place from which their ancestors first emerged into this world. Entering a Kiva is like returning to the source of creation. Inside, the layout is rich with meaning. In the center, you'll often find a fire pit, its hearth providing warmth and light, a symbol of life and community gathering. Look closely at the floor, and you might see a small, curious hole. This is the Saipapu, a feature of immense spiritual importance. It's believed to be the portal, the very passageway connecting this world to the world below, the realm of the spirits and ancestors. It's through the Sipapu that spirits could be invited to witness ceremonies, and it served as a constant reminder of the people's origin story. The architecture itself tells a story. The flat roof represents the sky, our father, while the floor is the earth, our mother. The wooden support posts might symbolize the great trees or mountains that hold up the sky. Every element was a deliberate part of a cosmic map, a microcosm of the entire universe, bringing the vastness of creation into a human scale, sacred space. But the Kiva was far more than just symbolic architecture. It was a living, breathing part of the community. This was where the men of the village, and sometimes women in specific societies, would gather. It was a workshop for creating ceremonial items, a classroom for passing down sacred knowledge to younger generations, and a council chamber for making important community decisions. It was a space for weaving, for storytelling, and for preparing for the vital rituals that ensured balance and harmony. These rituals were the lifeblood of the Puebloan world. Ceremonies tied to the agricultural cycle were paramount. Think about it. In the arid Southwest, rain is life. So, intricate ceremonies were performed within the Kiva to petition the spirits, or Katsinas, for rain, for a successful harvest, and for the well-being of the entire village. Dancers would prepare in the seclusion of the Kiva, emerging into the plaza above to share their blessings with the community. The Kiva was the staging ground for these powerful expressions of faith. The symbolism extended to every action. The smoke from the central fire carried prayers up to the spirit world. The rhythmic beat of a drum echoed the heartbeat of the earth. Chants sung in the resonant space created a powerful vibration, believed to align the participants with the natural and supernatural worlds. These weren't just performances. They were acts of co-creation with the divine, meant to maintain the delicate balance between humanity and nature. Imagine the atmosphere during one of these ceremonies. The flickering firelight casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. The air thick with the scent of burning cedar and sage, the low hum of ancient songs filling the chamber. It was a multisensory experience designed to transport participants beyond the ordinary, into a state of deep spiritual connection. This was where individuals connected with their ancestors, their deities, and their deepest sense of self and community. Even today, kivas remain vital, active ceremonial centers in modern Pueblo communities. While many ancient sites are now protected ruins that we can visit and respectfully observe, it's crucial to remember that this is not a dead tradition. It is a living culture, and the sacred nature of the kiva endures. For this reason, active kivas in the Pueblos are not open to the public. They are private, sacred spaces, and we must honor that privacy. By studying ancient kivas, we gain a profound appreciation for the spiritual sophistication of the ancestral Puebloan people. They engineered their world to reflect their cosmology, creating a space where the physical and spiritual realms could meet. The kiva teaches us that a building can be more than just a shelter. It can be a portal, a library of sacred knowledge, and the very heart of a culture. It's a powerful testament to the human need for connection to the earth, to the cosmos, and to each other. Thank you so much for joining me on this descent into the sacred world of the kiva. I hope it's given you a new perspective on these incredible ancient structures. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more explorations into the mysteries of the past. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or any questions you might have had. Until next time, keep exploring. Have you ever wondered what could make an entire civilization just ... disappear? Not vanish into thin air, but pack up and leave their homes, cities, and everything they've ever known behind. That's exactly what happened around the year 1300 CE in the American Southwest. The ancestral Pueblo people, who had built magnificent cliff dwellings and sprawling communities, suddenly migrated away, leaving behind ghost towns that puzzle us to this day. This event is often called the Great Migration. Welcome back to our channel, where we explore the most fascinating mysteries of history. Today, we re-dive in deep into the canyons and mesas of the Four Corners region to understand why these ancient people left. What could have possibly pushed them to abandon places like Mesa Verde, Chaco Canyon, and Coyenta? For decades, archaeologists and historians have debated this very question, and the answers are as complex as the civilization itself. Let's set the scene. Imagine thriving communities, bustling with life. The ancestral Puebloans were master architects, skilled farmers, and sophisticated astronomers. Their multi-story stone buildings, nestled into sheer cliff faces, were engineering marvels. They had complex road systems, intricate pottery, and a deep connection to the land. For hundreds of years, their culture flourished. Then, within the span of just a few decades, from about 1275 to 1300, these incredible settlements fell silent. So, what happened? The most prominent theory, and the one with the most scientific evidence, points to the climate. Trailing data, which gives us a year-by-year record of rainfall, reveals a catastrophic event known as the Great Drought. This wasn't just a dry spell. It was a prolonged, severe drought that lasted for over 2 decades, from about 1276 to 1299. For a society dependent on agriculture, especially corn, beans, and squash, this would have been devastating. Imagine your local grocery store running out of food, not just for a day or a week, but for years. The streams would have dried up, the cornfields would have withered, and the game animals they relied on for protein would have become scarce. The very foundation of their survival was crumbling. This extreme resource stress is a powerful explanation. It's hard to stay put when the land can no longer feed your family. The Great Drought wasn't just an inconvenience, it was an existential threat. But was it just about the weather? Probably not. A society doesn't collapse from a single blow. It's usually a combination of factors. The drought likely created a domino effect. As resources dwindled, tensions would have risen. This leads us to another theory: conflict. Archaeological evidence from this period shows an increase in defensive structures. Some sites were built in more easily defendable locations, and we find signs of violence, such as burned villages and skeletal remains with traumatic injuries. This doesn't necessarily mean all-out warfare between large groups. It could have been smaller scale raiding and competition over the few remaining fertile areas or water sources. When people are hungry and desperate, social structures can break down. The peace and cooperation that had allowed these communities to thrive may have given way to suspicion and conflict. It's a grim picture, but a realistic one. The stress of survival can bring out the worst in humanity, and the ancestral Puebloans were, after all, human. Now, let's consider the internal social dynamics. Some researchers suggest that the problems weren't just external, but internal as well. The social and political structures that held these communities together may have failed. Perhaps the leadership, the religious elders or clan leaders, couldn't provide the solutions people needed. Imagine year after year of failed harvests and unanswered prayers for rain. Faith in the existing system would have eroded. This crisis of faith could have led to social upheaval. Maybe new leaders or new religious ideas emerged, promising a better future elsewhere. It's possible that the migration wasn't a chaotic flight, but a structured and organized movement led by new charismatic figures. People might have decided that their old way of life and their old leaders had failed them, and their only hope was to start fresh somewhere new. This breakdown of social cohesion is a compelling piece of the puzzle. Finally, we have a theory that looks beyond just survival. What if the migration wasn't just a forced retreat, but also a spiritual journey? Puebloan cosmology and oral traditions are rich with stories of migration. For many modern Pueblo people, who are the descendants of these ancient groups, movement is a natural part of their history and worldview. Their ancestors' stories often speak of searching for the center place, a spiritually destined location. From this perspective, the migration wasn't an end, but a transformation. Perhaps the drought and conflict were seen as signs, divine messages that it was time to move on, to fulfill a spiritual destiny. It wasn't about abandoning a home so much as it was about seeking a new one that was more spiritually aligned. This view reframes the event from a tragedy to a deliberate act of cultural and spiritual renewal. The people didn't disappear. They moved south and east, establishing new communities that eventually became the modern pueblos we know today in New Mexico and Arizona. So, which theory is correct? The truth is, it was likely a combination of all of them. A perfect storm of environmental disaster, resource scarcity, social tension, and a deeply held spiritual belief system. The Great Drought was the catalyst, the immense pressure that fractured their society. This led to conflict over what little was left. The internal, social, and religious systems were unable to cope with the crisis, leading people to seek new leadership and new hope. And finally, their spiritual traditions provided a framework and a direction for this massive movement. The story of the Great Migration is a powerful reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. The ancestral Pueblo people faced an unimaginable crisis, but they didn't just vanish. They adapted. They made the incredibly difficult decision to leave their ancestral homes and journey into the unknown to build a new future. Their descendants, the Pueblo people of today, are a living testament to their strength and endurance. The empty cliff dwellings are not just monuments to a lost civilization, but symbols of a people who chose to move forward in the face of catastrophe. What do you think was the primary reason for the migration? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's a complex story with no easy answers, which is what makes it so captivating. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this exploration and want to uncover more historical mysteries, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue to create this content. We'll see you in the next video. Imagine standing at the edge of a great stone city, a masterpiece of architecture built by your ancestors, and knowing you have to leave it all behind. This wasn't a defeat. It was a choice, a great migration that would redefine a people. This is the story of the ancestral Puebloans and their journey away from the stone cities of the Four Corners. For centuries, these canyons and mesas were the heart of their world. Places like Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde weren't just settlements. They were thriving centers of culture, astronomy, and trade. The walls of their great houses, built with a skill that still astounds us today, echoed with the sounds of daily life, ceremony, and community. But the earth, which had given so much, began to change. The rains became less predictable, the growing seasons shorter. The world that had sustained them for generations was shifting. The decision to leave wasn't made overnight. It was a gradual process, likely discussed in Kivas and family homes over many years. It was a monumental act of courage and foresight. They looked at their magnificent homes, not with sorrow, but with an understanding that the home is more than stone and mortar. A home is the people, the stories they tell, the traditions they uphold, and the spirit that binds them together. So, they began to walk. Families gathered what they could carry: pottery, tools, seeds for the next harvest, and the sacred items that connected them to the cosmos. They walked away from the stone cities, but they took the city with them, in their hearts and minds. The architectural genius that built Chaco was now applied to new challenges. The social structures that governed their complex society were adapted to new landscapes. They journeyed south and east, following the life-giving rivers like the Rio Grande. This was not a desperate flight, but a purposeful pilgrimage. Along the way, they encountered new landscapes, new resources, and new communities. They shared their knowledge and learned from others, weaving new threads into their rich cultural tapestry. Their oral traditions, passed down from generation to generation, became more vital than ever. The stories of their origins, the epic tales of their clans, and the sacred songs of their ceremonies were the invisible luggage they carried. Think about it. The same clan stories that were once told within the stone walls of Mesa Verde were now being whispered under the vast skies of the Rio Grande Valley. The same pottery techniques, refined over centuries, were used to shape the clay of a new homeland. The spirit of the people wasn't abandoned in the canyons. It was replanted, and it flourished. When they arrived in their new homes, they began to build again. The pueblos they constructed along the Rio Grande, and in places like Acuma and Zuni, may look different from the great houses of the north, but they carry the same DNA. You can see the continuity in the layout of the villages, the design of the kivas, and the deep, unwavering sense of community. They brought their calendar, their agricultural knowledge, and their profound connection to the cycles of the sun and moon. This migration demonstrates an incredible resilience. It teaches us that culture is not static. It's a living, breathing entity that adapts and evolves. The Ancestral Puebloans showed that what truly defines a people is not what they build with their hands, but the enduring strength of their spirit and the traditions they carry forward. The stone cities they left behind became monuments, silent witnesses to a powerful past. But the people themselves, they never disappeared. T walked on carrying the flame of their civilization, a flame that continues to burn brightly today in the modern Pueblo communities of the Southwest. Their journey is a powerful reminder that our heritage is not just in the places we leave behind, but in the stories we tell, the songs we sing, and the spirit we carry into the future. It's a story of change, of resilience, and of the unbreakable bond between a people and their culture. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through history. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into our shared past. Your support means the world. See you next time. Music begins, a gentle, reflective melody with southwestern undertones, then fades slightly to the background. Hello and welcome back. We've journeyed through time, walking the dusty trails of Chaco Canyon, climbing the ladders of Mesa Verde, and marveling at the ingenuity of the ancestral Pueblo. We've seen their rise, their incredible achievements, and their mysterious departure from these ancient homes. But this is not where their story ends. In fact, the most important chapter is the one being written right now, because the ancestral Puebloans never truly vanished. They live on. Their spirit, their culture, and their bloodlines are carried forward by the vibrant and resilient Pueblo communities of today. So, where did they go? They journeyed, adapted, and established new homes along the Rio Grande and other areas in New Mexico and Arizona. Today, we know them as the Hopi, the Zuni, the people of Acoma, Taos, and the many other Pueblo nations. This isn't just a story of the past, it's a living history. For centuries, scholars and explorers referred to the people who built these magnificent cliff dwellings as the Anasazi. It's a term many of us learned in school. However, this name, a Navajo word, is often translated as ancient enemy or ancient strangers, and it's a label that modern Pueblo people have rightfully rejected. It was a name given by outsiders, not by the people themselves. They are, and always have been, the ancestors. When you speak to a member of the Hopi or Zuni communities, they don't see the inhabitants of Chaco or Mesa Verde as a lost civilization. They see them as their grandparents, their great-great-great-grandparents. The connection is direct, personal, and profoundly spiritual. The stories of migration, the reasons for leaving those ancient homes, are not mysteries to them. They are preserved in their oral traditions, passed down from generation to generation through song, ceremony, and storytelling. These oral histories speak of long journeys, of searching for the center place, of spiritual quests guided by prophecies. They are epic tales of survival and faith that explain far more than archaeology ever could on its own. It's a powerful reminder that history isn't just written in stone, it's carried in the heart. So, how do we see these ancient traditions alive today? Look at the architecture. Visit a place like Taos Pueblo in New Mexico, a multi-storied adobe complex that has been continuously inhabited for over 1,000 years. Its form echoes the great houses of Chaco Canyon. The construction methods, using adobe bricks and wooden vigas, are techniques honed over centuries. Or look to Acoma Pueblo, the Sky City, perched atop a sheer-walled mesa. Its defensive position and stunning design are a direct continuation of the architectural brilliance we saw at Mesa Verde. These are not replicas or museums. They are homes. There are communities where daily life unfolds against a backdrop of living history, a testament to an unbroken chain of existence stretching back for millennia. These structures are physical proof that the people simply moved and continued building, adapting ancient knowledge to new landscapes. The connection runs even deeper when we look at their farming practices. The Ancestral Puebloans were masters of dryland farming, developing sophisticated techniques to grow corn, beans, and squash in the arid southwest. They built check dams, terraces, and irrigation canals to manage precious water resources. Today, Hopi farmers continue this tradition, planting their corn deep in the sandy soil to reach the subsurface moisture. They understand the nuances of the climate and the land in a way that is both scientific and spiritual. Corn is not just a crop, it is sacred. It is considered the mother of the people, a gift from the Creator that sustains them physically and culturally. Each colored kernel blue, red, yellow, and white has its own meaning and purpose, woven into the fabric of their ceremonies and daily meals. When a Hopi farmer plants his crops, he is reenacting a ritual that his ancestors performed in those same landscapes thousands of years ago. It's a profound continuity of life and purpose. And then there is the art, the iconic black-on-white pottery that we so admire from the Ancestral Puebloan period. Its intricate geometric patterns and symbolic designs did not disappear. It evolved. The potters of the Acoma, Zuni, and other pueblos are world-renowned for their craftsmanship. Women, who have traditionally been the potters, pass down their knowledge to their daughters and granddaughters. They know where to find the best clay, how to mix it, how to build the pots, coil by coil without a wheel, how to polish them to a high sheen with a smooth stone, and how to paint them with brushes made from yucca fibers. The designs they paint are not mere decorations. They are prayers. They represent clouds, rain, lightning, feathers, and the interconnectedness of all life. A pot is a living entity, a vessel of both water and meaning. When you hold a piece of modern Pueblo pottery, you are holding the culmination of 1,000 years of artistic and spiritual expression. The same can be said for their weaving, their jewelry making, and their kashina carving. Each piece is a story, a prayer, a connection to the ancestral world. Perhaps the most vital element of this living heritage is the ceremonial life. The spiritual world of the modern Pueblos is rich and complex, centered around the annual cycle of ceremonies that ensure rain, bountiful harvests, and balance in the world. Many of these ceremonies take place in kivas, the subterranean chambers that are a direct descendant of the great kivas we find at Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde. These sacred spaces are the heart of the community, where spiritual knowledge is passed down and ancient rituals are performed. The Kashina religion, central to the Hopi and Zuni, involves spiritual beings who act as intermediaries between humans and the gods. During ceremonies, masked dancers embody these Kashinas, bringing blessings of rain and life to the village. These are not performances for tourists. They are deeply sacred, private observances that maintain the cosmic order. It is through this unbroken ceremonial life that the core beliefs and worldview of the ancestral Puebloans have been so perfectly preserved. They are living their religion, just as their ancestors did. It is crucial for us, as visitors and students of this history, to approach these communities with the utmost respect. These are not living history museums. They are sovereign nations with their own governments, laws, and social structures. Many areas, especially ceremonial sites, are closed to outsiders to protect their sacred nature. When you visit a place like Taos or Acama, you are a guest in someone's home. It's an incredible privilege to witness this continuity, and it comes with the responsibility to be mindful and respectful. Buy art directly from the artists. Listen more than you speak. Ask for permission before taking photos, and respect the answer if it's no. By doing so, we not only honor the people of today, but also show respect for the ancestors whose legacy they carry. The story of the Ancestral Puebloans is not a tragedy of a lost people. It is a powerful epic of resilience, adaptation, and cultural persistence. The descendants are here. They are thriving. They are artists, farmers, scholars, and community leaders who carry the wisdom of the ancients into the 21st century. Their presence transforms our understanding of the past. The cliff dwellings and great houses are not empty ruins. Their spirit is alive and well in the nearby villages. The story has come full circle. The past is present. The ancestors live. By listening to the voices of their living descendants, we can finally begin to understand the true, complete, and beautiful story of the people of the Southwest. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through time. It has been an honor to share this story with you. If you've been moved by this history, please consider supporting Pueblo artists and cultural centers. And if you enjoyed this series, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you for watching. Have you ever sat around a campfire, listening to a story that's been told for generations? Or maybe you've felt the ground shake to the rhythm of a dance so ancient, its origins are lost in the mists of time. These aren't just stories or dances. They are the living, breathing voices of our ancestors, carried on the wind through centuries. This is the magic of oral tradition. Today, we're diving deep into these voices in the wind. We'll explore how origin myths, epic migration stories, and sacred dances have shaped cultures and connected people to their past, long before the first word was ever written down. Let's start with origin myths. These aren't just simple creation stories. They are the spiritual and philosophical bedrock of a community. Think of the Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime, where ancestral beings sang the world into existence. Every rock, river, and animal holds a piece of that original song. These stories explain not just where we come from, but our purpose, our place in the cosmos, and our relationship with the natural world. They teach values, laws, and the consequences of our actions. When a community gathers to hear its origin myth, it's not just entertainment. It's a powerful act of remembering and reaffirming who they are, collectively. They're stepping back into that sacred, foundational time. But what happens when a people must move? This brings us to migration stories. These are epic tales of survival, courage, and navigation, passed down from one generation to the next. The Polynesian navigators, for example, crossed vast, seemingly empty stretches of the Pacific Ocean using nothing but the stars, the currents, and the flight of birds. Their knowledge was encoded in chants and stories. These weren't just maps. They were living databases of ecological knowledge, astronomical charts, and survival guides, all memorized and recited. Imagine the responsibility of the storyteller, the navigator, whose memory held the key to the survival of their entire people. These stories are a testament to human resilience and ingenuity, teaching that home is not just a place, but a journey and a collective memory you carry with you. Now, let's talk about the body as a library. Sacred dances are perhaps the most visceral form of oral tradition. The movements are not random. Each gesture, each step, each rhythm is a word in a story. The haka of the Mbori in New Zealand, for example, is a powerful display of a tribe's pride, strength, and history. It's a physical manifestation of their identity, a story told with every muscle and every breath. Similarly, the graceful movements of Balinese dancers can recount entire Hindu epics, with each hand position and facial expression conveying complex emotions and narrative details. When you watch these dances, you're not just seeing a performance. You're reading a story written in the language of the human body, a story that has been refined and passed down through countless generations of dancers. In our modern world, dominated by screens and text, it's easy to think of these oral traditions as relics of the past, but they are very much alive. In many communities, elders are still the cherished keepers of this ancestral knowledge. Festivals and ceremonies become living classrooms where these traditions are passed on to the young. It's a dynamic process. Each storyteller, each dancer, adds their own unique voice to the tradition, ensuring it evolves and stays relevant for the next generation. They are not just repeating, they are recreating. Think about it. Before Gua, before libraries, before the printing press, there was memory. There was the human voice. The entire history, science, and spirituality of a people could be held in the minds of its members. The storyteller was the historian, the teacher, and the priest. The dancer was the living book. This system relied on something incredibly powerful. Community knowledge wasn't a private possession. It was a shared treasure, maintained through constant retelling, practice, and social connection. It required active listening, participation, and trust. So, why does this matter to us today, in our hyper-connected, digital age? Because these traditions remind us of a deeper form of connection. They teach us the power of listening, not just with our ears, but with our whole being. They show us that our identities are woven from the stories of those who came before us. They encourage us to look beyond the written word and find the wisdom embedded in songs, in dances, and in the land itself. These voices in the wind are all around us, if we only learn how to listen. They are in the family stories your grandparents tell, in the traditional recipes passed down through your family, in the lullabies sung to children. They are the threads that connect us to our heritage and to each other. By honoring these traditions, we don't just preserve the past, we enrich our present and build a more meaningful future. We learn that history is not a static list of dates and facts, but a living, breathing story that we are all a part of. The next time you hear an old story or see a traditional dance, remember that you are witnessing something sacred, a voice from the past, speaking directly to you, here and now. You are part of a chain of memory stretching back through time. What are some of the oral traditions from your own family or culture? I would love to read about them in the comments below. Let's share these voices and keep them echoing for generations to come. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If you enjoyed this exploration, please give this video a thumbs up. And do you want to forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you do want to miss our next chapter. Until next time, keep listening to the voices on the wind. For centuries, they lay hidden, shrouded in the embrace of time and nature. Mighty cities, sacred temples, and sprawling settlements, once teeming with life, had vanished from memory, their stories whispered only by the wind. Then, in the 19th century, everything began to change. This is the story of rediscovery, a tale of curious settlers, intrepid explorers, and the birth of a new science. Archaeology. Imagine you're a pioneer in the 1800s, carving out a new life in an untamed landscape. As you clear land for a farm or forge a trail through dense jungle, your plow strikes something hard. It's not just a rock, it's a carved stone, a piece of intricate pottery, or the foundation of a structure far older than anything you've ever seen. This was the reality for many settlers across the Americas, Africa, and Asia. They were the first to stumble upon the ghosts of ancient civilizations. Letters and diaries from this era are filled with a sense of awe and bewilderment. A farmer in Ohio might write home about the strange, geometric earthworks he found on his property. Massive mounds that formed perfect circles and squares, visible only from a high vantage point. A rancher in the American Southwest would describe finding entire villages tucked into sheer cliff faces, their stone walls and wooden beams remarkably preserved in the dry desert air. In the dense jungles of Central America, explorers following rumors of lost cities would suddenly find themselves standing before colossal pyramids and palaces, completely engulfed by vines and trees. These initial encounters were often clumsy, driven by curiosity and the allure of treasure. Many early explorers were more like treasure hunters. They dug without method, seeking gold, jewels, and exotic artifacts to sell to wealthy collectors back in Europe and America. In their haste, they often destroyed as much as they discovered. Walls were torn down, tombs were looted, and priceless information about the daily lives of ancient peoples was lost forever. We can look back and lament these destructive methods, but it's important to remember this was a time before archaeology was a formal discipline. There were no established rules, no scientific techniques for careful excavation. However, this treasure rush also sparked a genuine intellectual fire. The artifacts and stories brought back from these lost ruins captivated the public imagination. Scholars and scientists began to ask serious questions. Who built these magnificent structures? What happened to them? How did they live? This curiosity gave rise to a new breed of explorer, the archaeologist. Figures like John Lloyd Stephens and Frederick Ca, who documented the Maya ruins in the 1840s, were up here. Stephens wrote vivid, engaging accounts of their travels, while Catherwood, an incredibly talented artist, created stunningly accurate illustrations of the vine-choked temples and intricate carvings they found. Their books became international bestsellers, introducing the world to the forgotten splendors of the Maya civilization. For the first time, people saw these ruins not just as a source of treasure, but as the legacy of a sophisticated and artistic culture. Similarly, in Egypt, the decipherment of the Rosetta Stone in 1822 by Jean-François Champollion unlocked the secrets of hieroglyphics. Suddenly, the inscriptions on temple walls and papyrus scrolls could be read. The pharaohs were no longer silent stone figures. They had names, histories, and voices. This breakthrough transformed Egyptology and set a new standard for archaeological investigation. The focus began to shift from simply collecting objects to understanding the context in which they were found. This shift was crucial. Early archaeologists started developing systematic methods for excavation. They began to understand the importance of stratigraphy, the idea that layers of soil correspond to different periods in time, with the oldest at the bottom and the newest at the top. By carefully documenting the position of every artifact, shard of pottery, and animal bone, they could piece together a timeline of the site. They weren't just digging for things. They were reading the story written in the earth. This growing scientific approach also brought with it a profound change in attitude. As archaeologists learned more about the people who built these sites, a deeper respect began to form. They recognized that these were not just abandoned piles of stone. They were sacred places. They were centers of ceremony, governance, and community. They were the burial grounds of ancestors. This realization sparked the first movements toward preservation. Instead of seeing a crumbling wall as an obstacle, archaeologists began to see it as a precious document that needed to be protected. They argued against the rampant looting and called for the establishment of national parks and heritage sites to safeguard these irreplaceable links to our shared human past. It was a slow and often difficult process. The idea of preserving heritage for its own sake, for the benefit of future generations, was a radical concept in an age focused on industrial progress and expansion. But the seed was planted. The work of these 19th century pioneers laid the groundwork for modern archaeology and the global conservation movement. They transformed lost ruins from curiosities into vital sources of historical knowledge and cultural pride. They taught us that the greatest treasure these sites hold isn't gold or jewels, but the stories they tell about who we were, and by extension, who we are. They rediscovered not just stones and cities, but entire chapters of the human story that had been thought lost to time. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. The story of our past is always unfolding, with new discoveries being made every day. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button, and consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss our next chapter. We'd love to have you as part of our community of history lovers. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the history of the Ancestral Puebloans. In our final chapter, we're shifting our focus from the past to the present and future, exploring the crucial themes of preservation and respect. The magnificent cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde, the grand great houses of Chaco Canyon, and the countless other sites scattered across the Four Corners region are more than just archaeological wonders. They are living, breathing testaments to a vibrant culture, and for modern Pueblo people, they are sacred, ancestral homelands. How do we ensure these irreplaceable treasures endure for generations to come? Let's start with the big players. In 1906, President Theodore Roosevelt signed the Antiquities Act, a landmark piece of legislation that gave presidents the authority to declare national monuments. This was a game changer. That same year, Mesa Verde was designated a national park, placing it under federal protection. This was one of the very first parks created to preserve human culture, not just natural scenery. Imagine the foresight it took over a century ago to recognize the profound importance of these structures. Today, the National Park Service manages Mesa Verde, balancing the immense task of preserving fragile, centuries-old architecture with educating millions of visitors from around the world. It's a delicate dance between access and conservation. Rangers and archaeologists work tirelessly, using advanced techniques to monitor cliff stability, repair masonry with historically accurate materials, and study the impacts of climate change on these ancient homes. Similarly, Chaco Canyon, which was first made a national monument in 1907, was later expanded and redesignated as Chaco Culture National Historical Park in 1980. This wasn't just a name change. It recognized that Chaco was the center of a vast, interconnected world. The park's protection extends beyond the main canyon to include outlier sites, acknowledging the true scale of the Chaco system. But protection here has faced modern challenges. The park sits in the San Juan Basin, an area rich in oil and gas. For years, there has been a significant struggle between development and preservation. Native tribes archaeologists and conservation groups have fought to protect the wider Chaco landscape from the impacts of drilling, which can cause ground vibrations, air pollution, and destroy undiscovered sites. In 2023, a 20-year ban on new oil and gas leasing was established within a 10-mile radius of the park, a major victory for preservation, highlighting the ongoing effort required to safeguard this World Heritage Site. Beyond these two giants, countless other sites are protected under various designations. We have Juvenweep and Aztec Ruins National Monuments, the recently designated Bajnuavio, Itacacveni, Ancestral Footprints of the Grand Canyon National Monument, and Bear Ears National Monument in Utah. Each of these places tells a unique part of the Puebloan story. Bear Ears, in particular, is a groundbreaking example of collaborative management. It was designated after a historic proposal from a coalition of 5 Native American tribes: the Hopi, Navajo, Nation Ute, Mountain Ute, Ute Indian tribe of the Ainta, and Ure Reservation, and the Pueblo of Zuni. This model recognizes that the descendants of the people who built these places have a unique and essential role in their stewardship. This brings us to the most important part of this story: the Native perspective. For the 21 federally recognized Pueblo tribes of New Mexico and Arizona, as well as for the Hopi and other descendant communities, Tese are not ruins or abandoned villages. They are living, sacred spaces. They are the homes of their ancestors. The word respect is paramount. When you visit these sites, you are a guest in their home. From the Pueblo perspective, the spirits of the ancestors still reside there. The landscape itself, the mesas, the canyons, the springs is imbued with spiritual significance. These places are visited for ceremonies, to gather traditional materials, and to maintain a connection that has never been broken. Stewardship, from this viewpoint, is not just about scientific preservation of buildings. It's a profound spiritual and cultural responsibility. It's about maintaining the chakra, the life force, or energy of a place. This means approaching these sites with reverence, leaving everything as you found it, and listening to the stories the land and the stones have to tell. Tribal Historic Preservation Offices, or THPOs, now play a critical role, working alongside federal agencies to ensure that tribal values and knowledge are integrated into management plans. They bring an invaluable perspective that archaeology alone cannot provide. They know the oral histories, the clan migrations, and the ceremonial significance of sites that might otherwise be just data points on a map. This collaboration is correcting a long history where native voices were often excluded from the management of their own ancestral lands. So, what is our role in all of this? As visitors, we become temporary stewards. The principle of leave no trace is more than just a slogan here. It's a fundamental sign of respect. This means staying on designated trails, not touching or leaning on fragile walls, and never, ever taking anything. Not even a small potsherd. A single sherd on the ground is part of the story, part of the puzzle. When it's removed, a piece of that story is lost forever. We must also be mindful of our behavior, speaking in quiet tones and remembering that we are in a place of deep cultural and spiritual importance, akin to a church, a synagogue, or a mosque. The future of these sites depends on this blend of scientific conservation and respectful, collaborative stewardship. It depends on funding for the National Park Service, on policies that protect cultural landscapes from modern threats, and on a public that understands and values this heritage. By visiting thoughtfully, supporting conservation organizations, and listening to and amplifying native voices, we can all contribute. We can help ensure that the story of the Ancestral Puebloans, story of resilience, innovation, and deep connection to the land continues. To inspire and educate for centuries to come, the respect we show today is the legacy we leave for tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through time. It has been an honor to share these stories with you. If you've enjoyed this series, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into our shared human history. Your support makes all of this possible. Thank you. Have you ever felt a bit lost in the hustle and bustle of modern life? Like we're running so fast, we've forgotten where we came from. It's a feeling I think many of us share. We're constantly chasing the next big thing, the latest gadget, the newest trend. But what if the most profound wisdom, the answers we're searching for, aren't in the future, but deep in our past? What if the secrets to a more fulfilling, sustainable, and connected life are waiting for us in the lessons of our ancestors? Today, let's take a gentle step back in time, not just to look at history, but to listen to what it's trying to tell us. This isn't about ditching our smartphones and going back to the Stone Age. It's about rediscovering a timeless wisdom that can help us build a better future. Let's explore the incredible lessons from the ancients and see how their understanding of sustainability, community, and respect for the land can illuminate our path forward. Let's start with sustainability. It's a buzzword today, isn't it? We talk about eco-friendly products and carbon footprints. But for ancient cultures, sustainability wasn't a choice. It was the very fabric of their existence. They didn't see the earth as a resource to be exploited, but as a living, breathing partner. Think about the intricate irrigation systems of ancient Mesopotamia, or the terrace farming of the Inca and the Andes. These weren't just feats of engineering. They were masterpieces of cooperation with nature. They understood the cycles of the seasons, the language of the soil, and the rhythm of the rains. They knew that to take from the land, you must also give back. They practiced crop rotation, not because a textbook told them to, but because they observed that the soil needed to rest and replenish. They used every part of an animal or a plant, not just out of necessity, but out of a deep-seated respect for the life that was given. This wasn't about scarcity. It was about abundance, born from a mindset of stewardship. What can we learn from this? Perhaps the most important lesson is that sustainability is a relationship, not a transaction. It's about seeing the world not as a supermarket of endless resources, but as a garden that we are privileged to tend. It's about thinking in terms of generations, not just quarterly profits. What if we approached our modern challenges, climate change, resource depletion, with this ancestral mindset? What if our goal wasn't just to be less bad, but to be genuinely good for the planet? This deep connection to the land was intertwined with an equally powerful sense of community. In our modern world, we can be connected to thousands of people online, yet feel profoundly lonely. We live in crowded cities, but we might not even know our next-door neighbors. For our ancestors, community was everything. It was their safety net, their support system, their source of identity and belonging. In a tribal village, everyone had a role. The elders were the libraries of wisdom, the storytellers who carried the history and values of the people. The hunters and farmers worked together, sharing their bounty. The artisans created tools and art that served and beautified the entire group. Childcare was often a shared responsibility. A true village raising a child. There was an understanding that the well-being of the individual was inseparable from the well-being of the group. If one person went hungry, the whole community felt the ache. If one person celebrated, the whole community shared in the joy. This created a powerful social fabric, a resilience that could withstand droughts, floods, and all sorts of hardships. They solved problems face to face. Through dialogue and consensus, they celebrated together, mourned together, and built their world together. How can we bring some of that into our lives today? It might be as simple as starting a community garden in your neighborhood, organizing a local potluck, or just taking the time to really listen to the stories of the elders in our own families. It's about consciously building real-world connections and recognizing that we are stronger, happier, and more resilient when we stand together. Finally, let's talk about respect. This concept was the bedrock of ancient life: respect for the land, for the community, and crucially, for the ancestors. In many ancient traditions, the ancestors weren't just gone and forgotten. They were seen as a continuing presence, a source of guidance and strength. Rituals, stories, and ceremonies kept their memory alive, ensuring that their struggles, their triumphs, and their wisdom were not lost to time. This wasn't about being stuck in the past. It was about understanding that we are part of a long, unbroken chain. We are the inheritors of a legacy, and we have a responsibility to honor it and pass it on to the next generation. This created a sense of humility and perspective. It reminded people that their own lives were just one chapter in a much larger story. This deep respect also extended to the land itself. Mountains, rivers, and ancient trees weren't just geographical features. They were sacred. They were imbued with spirit and history. This worldview fostered a profound sense of care and reverence. You don't pollute a sacred river. You don't clear-cut a sacred forest. This is a stark contrast to our modern view of land as mere property, a commodity to be bought, sold, and developed. What if we could reclaim a fraction of that reverence? What if we saw our local parks not just as recreational spaces, but as sacred groves? What if we honored the history of the land we live on, acknowledging the people who came before us? This shift in perspective could fundamentally change our relationship with our environment and with our own history. It's about remembering that we don't just own the land. We belong to Italiano, so what does this all mean for us, here and now? It means that progress doesn't have to mean forgetting. We can have our incredible technology, our global connections, and our modern comforts, but we can enrich them with the timeless wisdom of our ancestors. We can practice sustainability not as a chore, but as a joyful act of partnership with the earth. We can build communities that are as strong and supportive as any ancient tribe, even in the heart of a bustling city. And we can cultivate a deep respect for our past and our planet, giving our lives a greater sense of purpose and meaning. The lessons are all around us in the silent wisdom of an old-growth forest, in the stories passed down through our families, and in that quiet, intuitive part of ourselves that knows we are connected to something much larger. It's about looking back to move forward with greater wisdom and a clearer heart. It's a journey of rediscovery, and it's one we can all start today, right where we are. What ancestral lesson resonates most with you? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me on this thoughtful journey today. If this reflection sparked something in you, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the wisdom that shapes our world. Your support means everything and helps us continue creating this content. Until next time, take care and stay curious. As our journey through time and terrain draws to a close, we find ourselves here, amidst the eternal echoes in stone. Look around you. These are not merely ruins. They are the heartbeats of a civilization, preserved in the very rock from which they were born. For centuries, perhaps millennia, these silent stone dwellings have stood as stoic sentinels, watching over the vast, shifting sands of the desert. Imagine, for a moment, the lives lived within these walls. The laughter of children echoing through these now quiet courtyards. The murmur of stories told around a crackling fire, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. the weary traveler, finding solace and shelter from the unforgiving sun. These stones have absorbed it all. They are a library of human experience, holding tales of joy, sorrow, struggle, and triumph. The people who built this place were not just architects. They were artists, astronomers, and survivors. They understood the rhythms of the desert, the scorching days, the frigid nights, the rare but life-giving rains. They didn't just exist here, they thrived. Every chiseled block, every carefully placed lintel, speaks of a profound connection to this land. They didn't conquer the desert, they became one with it, their lives woven into its very fabric. This ingenuity is breathtaking. Consider the engineering required to carve homes directly from the mountainside, creating natural insulation against the extreme temperatures. Think of the complex water channels, painstakingly etched into the rock, guiding precious water to cisterns and fields, turning arid land into a garden of life. This wasn't just construction, it was a conversation with the environment, a masterclass in adaptation. They listened to what the earth told them, and responded with creativity and respect. As day surrenders to night, a different kind of magic unfolds. The desert sky, a canvas of infinite darkness, becomes ablaze with 1 billion stars. It's the same sky that the builders of this city gazed upon. Beneath these desert stars, these stone structures take on a new life, their silhouettes etched against the celestial glow. You can almost feel the spirits of the past stirring in the cool night air. Were they astronomers, charting the cosmos from these high perches? Did they see their gods and heroes in the constellations wheeling overhead? These dwellings are a testament to the unyielding power of the human spirit. They prove that even in the most challenging of environments, humanity can create beauty, community, and a lasting legacy. It is a story of resilience written in stone, a powerful reminder that our capacity to adapt and endure is as vast and timeless as the desert itself. We often think of history as something found in books, dusty scrolls, or museum displays. But here, history is tangible. You can run your hand along a wall and feel the texture left by a craftsman thousands of years ago. You can stand in a doorway and see the same vista that countless generations have seen before you. It connects us across the chasm of time to those who came before. It reminds us that we are part of a much larger, continuous story. This place teaches us a vital lesson. It teaches us about sustainability, about living in harmony with our surroundings. The people here understood that their survival depended on a delicate balance. They took only what they needed and used their resources with wisdom and foresight. In our modern world, where we often feel so disconnected from nature, these ancient stones offer a path back to understanding that profound relationship. Walk through these empty streets. Let the silence speak to you. It's not an empty silence. It's filled with the echoes of history. You can almost hear the distant sound of a hammer striking stone, the call of a merchant in the marketplace, the soft melody of a flute carried on the wind. These are the eternal echoes, reverberating through the ages. And so, as we leave this sacred ground, we carry with us more than just images and memories. We carry the spirit of this place, the spirit of resilience that allows life to flourish in the harshest of lands, the spirit of adaptation that turns challenges into opportunities, the enduring human spirit that dreams, builds, and leaves behind a legacy that defies time itself. These silent stone dwellings will continue their vigil long after we are gone. They will watch over the desert, their forms slowly softened by the wind and sand, yet their story remaining. They stand as a powerful, poetic testamenta, timeless monuments to what we can achieve when we blend our ingenuity with the wisdom of the natural world. They are an eternal echo in stone, a story for all time, whispered beneath the desert stars. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. If you were moved by the story of these ancient stones, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the wonders of our world. Until next time, keep seeking the stories that are written in the landscape all around us.